Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and students. Welcome to the September 26th meeting of the Blackstone Millville Regional School District School Committee. It's a pleasure to welcome you today, and it's wonderful to see the young faces out in the audience. I would like to call this meeting to order and ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And when we're done, I'd ask you to remain standing for a moment. I'll explain that while we're standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So at this time, we'd like to recognize the former superintendent of Blackstone Millville School District, who also probably brought the regional district together, former Superintendent Thomas Cullen, who passed away a couple weeks ago. He was very much a long-time superintendent here and really changed the face of what is Blackstone Millville. So we talk about people who are lucky and they're in the right place at the right time, but I think this community was lucky, and he made this place the right place at the right time. So we thank him for his service. We acknowledge his family and send our best, and if we could have a moment of silence in that recognition of him. Thank you. Introduction of members. Sarah, who's signing your sign?
Sarah Williams, Blackstone.
Aaron Vernon, Millville.
Jack Keefe, Blackstone.
Wendy Greenstein, Blackstone.
Tammy Lemieux, Blackstone.
Erin Vanaco, Millville.
Jane Reggio, Millville.
Matt Aaronworth, Assistant Superintendent.
Jason DeFalco, Superintendent.
And we do have some special student guests here who are going to talk to us about a program, but we have one special thing that we would like to do before that, and then if it's all right with everybody, we'll move around our agenda and move the science presentation up after the recognition of retirees. We had two long-term employees who retired over the summer, and as is the tradition of the school committee, we like to publicly thank them for their service. We are really blessed here in Blackstone Millville to have teachers who commit truly a lifetime of service to our district and staff and support staff. And so tonight we'd like to recognize two of those, one who has already moved away. But we want to acknowledge all the work that Karen Broad did for this district in our school district. And then, do you want to do the next one? Sure.
Thanks, Ms. Reggio. So good evening, everybody. So we just want to take a few minutes to recognize Ms. Barbara Finn, who has been with the district for over 30 years in a variety of positions, but most recently as a reading specialist working with our youngest learners in the kindergarten level. And so, Barbara, if you, I know you're here with your family, and it's great. If you all want to come up to the front, that would be wonderful. If you want to come up on your own, wherever you're most comfortable, please do come join us.
We're great. How are you?
Okay.
So one of the things that we do in this district is when someone retires, we ask them to select a special book or a favorite book that they've had that we purchase on their behalf to donate back to a school library in one of our schools. And I'm wondering if you have done that, and if so, what book you chose.
The book that I have selected is called Just Ask, and it was written by Sonia Sotomayor.
Oh, yeah.
It's a book that is rather recent to the shelves, and I selected that because I thought it was quite relevant in what children see every day, whether or not they experience it themselves, the child next to them, or at home. It's things like diabetes, asthma, deaf, different things and challenges that they might face on a regular basis. I thought this was a good story because she told it, and it kind of lends itself to a broad range of teaching children. In other words, if they're at a certain age, they could have a limited amount of exposure to what they needed to about the subject. And if they're a little older, maybe they'd like to learn a little bit about Sonia Sotomayor herself.
Nice.
And do a little research on authors. So there's many ways that this book can be looked at and utilized, and I hope they enjoy it. And I hope books continue to be enjoyed at our local libraries as well.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything they would like to say?
I'd like to thank you for your years of service and your family's years of service. I know we had Mr. Campo a few years ago, and now
Wendy.
you, and I, you know,
And
you're
I'd
a
like to thank
staple,
him,
you're a
too.
staple in our district, both of you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate all that you've done for
I'd
not
like
only
to-
the kids, but the teachers here as well.
I'd like to thank Mark, too, for all his investment of time in the elementary level. When people would say, let's blame it on the elementary, you wouldn't hear that from Mark, because he knew what it was like to live there, so to speak. It's been an interesting ride for both of us, and I, too, have had the pleasure of dealing with lots of high school activities and high school involvement with the young people themselves, and the little kids were my bag, so I've enjoyed them very much. I'll miss them.
And they will miss you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wendy.
And will you tell us how many years?
Well, I started in January of '77, which was my first position, so that brings me over 40.
Wow.
However, I have taken maternity leave and personal leave, etc., which kind of bumped it up and down, but it's been a good 40 years.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If I could... If I could just have another second of the committee's
You can have
time.
all the time you'd like.
Okay, I might take you up on that. I just want to thank, first of all, the former administrators who ran this ship long ago, back in the late 70s, and you alluded to Mr. Cullen, who I worked for. And he brought a multitude of wonderful programming to the district, and I appreciate that very much. Along with that, I want to remember the other administrators from early on, including Mr. Hartnett, Mr. Keefe, Mr. Pilibosian, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Monroe, Mr. Chakey, and the list could go on. But without them and their tenacity and dedication, I don't think we would be where we are today, and I hope we can look for long-term people who are willing to stay and continue to make the district as good as it possibly can. I also would like to acknowledge working with the staff that I have, and encourage each of you, if you have the time or inclination, to speak with staff members about a day in the life of a school teacher. Their challenges, their rewards, things that I think would be of benefit to both sides of the coin when thinking about education. And I'm so happy to see so many children and grown-ups here. Grown-up people is how I refer to them. Glad to see them here, to see the youngsters. But education is a double coin where parents have to be so involved, and they need to know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Words of wisdom.
Yeah.
Thank
I like
you,
the
Erin.
day in the life idea a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And best wishes. I hope happy retirement. Okay, that's gonna make me cry. Give me a minute. Okay, at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. DeFalco for our science pilot program presentation.
Thank you again. So, good evening again. I think one of the highlights of our meeting this evening are the bright and shining faces that are here this evening to share with us a little bit about their work with our science program. So, as a lot of folks know, we took a huge chunk of time last year working with our teachers to create new science units. We were looking for an experience for our students that would be really hands-on and give them an opportunity not just to read about science, but actually do science and really get up to their eyeballs, so to speak, in applying their learning and really having an opportunity to get engaged deeply with different lab experiences. Because we know, in particular, the science and technology field is so much at the forefront of the work that we all do every day, whether we're in the field or not, it directly impacts our lives. So we want to make sure that our students are on the cutting edge of that. And just very quickly before we hear from the students, I did have a chance recently, just this week, to spend a full day in first grade and had a chance to see our first graders engage directly with our science, our new science pilot, and it was awesome. It was just really great to see the kids so engaged, so interested in learning about light and the impact of light on our minds and the different signals that it sends us, and watching them really work through that was really, really powerful.
grade?
In first grade,
Not
yeah.
sure I can answer those
It
questions.
was pretty cool. It was actually Miss Jones who's sitting in the audience. She did a fabulous job, and her kids did too. So what a treat that was for me to be able to experience that. And we're in for a treat tonight because we actually have 3 teachers with us and some of their scholars, Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Keene, and Ms. Harpin. If you want to come down to the front here, or come on up to the front. Oh, second grade's going to go first. Okay, great. So Ms. Harpin, if you want to come on up with our brilliant young scientists and talk us through a little bit of the work that you've been doing and hear a bit about the unit that you've been piloting.
Hi, guys.
Welcome.
Can they introduce themselves? Everybody
They can, we would love if they would introduce
tell
themselves.
everybody who you are.
I'm Ellie.
Hi, Allie.
I'm Ivory.
Ivory? Hi, Ivory.
I'm Matthew.
Hi, Matthew.
I'm Serenity.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Serenity.
Nice.
Elsie.
Say again, I'm sorry.
Elsie.
Hi.
Elsie.
Nice to meet you all.
All right, so we're going to do an activity from our first unit that we've been working on, how wind and water change the shape of land. And this is the first mystery science lesson that we have in that unit. So, just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
All right. Are you fist or crumpler? So we have to pair up,
I'm Crumbler.
and one person has to be the fist, and one person has to be the crumpler.
I'm Crumbler.
Crumpler. All right, so make your fist. And crumpler crumples around the fist. Nice and tight. All right. Now take your fist out and crumpler crumples more. All right. All right, so then now, yep,
If-
unfold it.
If parents want pictures, you're more than welcome to come and
Yeah.
take from this side. Because we get the best view.
All right, now uncrumple. Uncrumple. This is new. All right. So then we have to take what we've crumpled onto a piece of paper, a flat piece of paper. So can one of you tell them what this shape is supposed to be? Ivory?
It's supposed to be a mountain.
Okay, it looks like it.
All right, uncrumple it, Matthew.
I'm going right here. Okay. That's how.
Right? I know.
One more. Okay.
Sounds like the wind and the water is having its own effect on the land outside.
Yeah, really. We can bring these right outside and see what the wind and the water will do, as Jack just said.
One more. All right, you guys all set? Okay. So the next step is they have to color over the highest peak or folds with a marker. So go ahead. Make it thick, okay? And do the high peaks, right? Kind of like where it's folded.
It drops down and make it so it's
Yeah, but nice and thick.
just color it.
That's what I'm saying. This is, yeah, second grade.
Just color it. You're good at coloring than doing that.
Standards now are totally different
Yeah.
than several years back, just the new standards.
Thought you were going to say then when Jamie was
Could have said that.
It's correct, too.
You're just
He
good.
was thinking it, it's okay.
All right, make them thicker, Serenity. Can you go over her line?
Just color it Serenity.
Yep.
Might have done this in one of my high school classes. Yeah.
Figure the look.
Sorry that you missed
And
that.
make them thick, Serenity, okay? Try and make them
Nice and dark.
good.
Don't be afraid.
I'm just gonna go on the
Yeah, good. All right, so the next step was, they had to take a spray bottle and they had to spray it 5 times, and then they had to wait a minute so they could see what happens to the ink. All right?
Can we go now?
Sorry, I didn't bring anything to protect this from being wet.
All right, it's the middle
Yep,
school.
five sprays.
I sprays. Mine.
Spray 5 times.
You're still making it quite beautiful.
Wait, yeah, you have to hold it down. You have to hold it down. So
Go for it, Matthew. Right on top.
Did you do 5?
No.
Go. 2. Just do
All
it
right, you
right
can
there.
spray.
And 2. Wait, one more.
Yep.
It's not working.
There you go, do one more.
Are you sure that was
Okay.
5?
So can anybody tell
Yes.
what is happening?
It's moving.
Somebody want to tell everybody what's happening? What are we seeing happen with the ink?
The water's picking up the ink and flowing down.
So what is it supposed to be showing us?
It's supposed to be forming a river.
Right. So we're learning how rivers start somewhere high and they flow down to the lowest parts, and as they flow down, they take pieces of the earth and they erode it and change the shape. So then they would spray it 5 more times, and then it would spread a little bit more.
Wait,
So if
do
you
it?
want to do 5 more times. Yeah.
I want. Okay, spray 2. I'm scared.
Oh, I totally see it
And then
running
we can
down.
see it
big
running
one.
down.
You can totally see it running down.
We got drips.
That's okay.
That's really blue.
That's what's supposed to happen.
Wait, okay, no, wait, good. You did 6. Good. Good job doing 6. Alright.
So I thought,
Wait, you did 5.
if
I
you
did
don't
3.
mind, we're also doing an interactive science notebook. So if they could take theirs and maybe bring it to.
This is mine.
Pick some people and come show us. We'd love to see it.
Brooklyn. I wrote my name.
Serenity? Oh, yeah. I'm gonna go share it with
Yes,
some
like
adults.
Oh, Jane's waving now. Wait a minute, Jane's like gonna flag you down.
Don't be afraid. Yeah, we can start. No, we can each get a different person. We can each get a person.
You can just
Everybody get a
hand
person.
it to them and they can just flip through it.
Mine.
Okay. You wanna go show that to somebody? Go ahead, pick anybody you want.
Oh, all right. Oh, we just get to look. Ivory, thank you.
Matt, come over here.
Ivory, come here a minute.
Bring it along, bud.
You get to glue these on and do all
Oh,
this stuff?
I'm sorry, here. It's not yours, but you can
And
still show
then-
it. You have the
so-
same one for math and science.
So what happens when you're studying,
bud,
you just
let's
flip
take
it
a
up,
look.
right?
Ready?
And you learn about it.
That is so
That is so cool.
You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, that is so
Or
cool.
you want to
Color?
just show it?
Do you color?
Very nice handwriting.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what was your
Bodies of
favorite thing to
water.
learn about?
Land
What's your
forms.
favorite of
Mountains,
these
the
things?
sea mountains, islands.
Island?
Peninsulas.
Have you ever been to an island?
Island. I always
where?
think of the word island when I think of how
Where are you going?
What's that one?
how words form.
Soil. What's soil made of?
There's some beaches where
Now, is the answer
sand is
under
pink.
there?
You gotta bring it home.
Yep.
Yes.
Nice.
Flip and reveal.
Rocks, minerals,
Okay?
and a sentence.
Uh-oh, soil is made of what?
That's what I'm asking.
We don't know, we haven't studied that. Oh, minerals.
Pretty cool.
Just like the
de-
Bell
oh,
at school. Do you
that's
have a
Fun
Bell
that
at
it's totally interactive.
That's okay. This is very cool. So by the end of the year, this will be full? Would you come back and show it to me?
Awesome. That's
Thank
really
you.
cool.
Thank you.
That's all for today.
I see the word island.
And that's it for
Like
today
Disneyland.
for our demonstration.
So wait, So have you all enjoyed this? Do you like this kind of science?
Yeah.
Yeah? Serenity, are you learning anything?
Can I spray
Yeah. Matthew, are you learning anything?
Yes.
All right.
He wants to spray somebody with the bottle.
What's the spray? He already sprayed himself in the face. Here you go, Mr.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
Great work.
Nice to see you, Mrs. Harpin.
for being here.
I can take a water bottle too.
And
I'll take a water bottle.
Mrs. Keene. And fourth and fifth grade, Mrs. Faulkner, Mrs. Keene.
What?
Older second.
You want to come on up
No, Elena is not.
with your brilliant young minds?
So they are 6 or 7.
Oh, we got stuff.
I'm all off.
We got stuff. You guys be ready. We got stuff. We take no tests.
All right, so this is
Daniel.
Daniel.
Juliana Go. Clover Maloney. Tegan Profena.
Okay, so I apologize, but I'm going to actually make you do that again because I heard one of those names.
Daniel Subitsny. Juliana Go. Clover Maloney. Tegan Profena.
Thank you.
Almost so you feel like you're yelling, but not yelling.
Grade 5 is currently working on.
Yell, Clover, it's okay.
Grade 5 is currently working on a unit in physical science. We're working on matter, focusing on its properties and how it can change form.
There are 3 states of matter, a solid, a liquid, and a gas.
We have done several experiments to explore matter. We weighed apples on a pan balance to find their mass, found the volume of a solid using the formula length times width times height, and of an irregular solid using the water displacement method. We also found and compared the density of corn oil, milk, hand sanitizer, and water.
We learn science by reading, taking notes, class discussion, using movement, and doing experiments. We learned that in a solid, molecules are packed tightly together. While molecules in a liquid move more freely. But the molecules in a gas move quite rapidly and are spread far apart.
Pew pew, pew pew. Pew pew.
We would now like to invite you to participate in a grade 5 science movement lesson. Please stand up and find a space in the room.
Oh, Lord. Matthew, you do it with me? No. It doesn't matter.
Go around.
He can move. Can't you move? You can move. Come to him.
After Ms. Keene.
No.
You guys want to do it with me?
I don't know what to do.
I don't know. We're going to find out.
Oh, you were all coming. Your friends coming too.
Oh, good. You guys will be pros when you get to 5th grade. Perfect.
All right, here we go. I don't know what we're doing.
The 5th graders will now join you on the count of 3. I would like to see what your group would look like if you were molecules in a solid matter. In 1, 2, 3.
solid. How are you feeling? All right. Hang on. Stay there. We have to turn the page. Go.
You have to turn the page.
All right. Wait a minute. Nope. Wait. Ready? Okay. Go.
Listening.
Let's add the heat, but not to the boiling point.
Oh, good.
What's the molecules do and look like now? Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The scientist.
Let's see. Where are you currently in?
Liquid. Yeah, exactly.
And lastly, you're going to really turn up the heat to 212 degrees Fahrenheit.
We're going to boil. Oh, yeah, we're going to
What
boil.
will happen to the molecules? Let's find out.
They didn't boil us. They don't boil us quickly as a
Get some future teachers here.
I have been seated.
They don't boil over as quickly.
You can take my chair. I'll stand in the back.
Sure, absolutely. Have a seat.
I'm a flip.
You said here.
Yeah.
Okay,
I stay. Don't be mean.
Run the show. Here we go.
After this activity, we would discuss as a class the effects heat had on the molecules, and then we would discuss what would happen to a gas if we removed the heat.
Along with movement, we do experiments in science. This next part of our presentation will need some supplies. Please be patient as we pass out our materials.
Oh, geez.
This is going to take
You don't even know.
Wait,
What a blue cup.
Thank you.
Blue cup, blue cup.
Thank you very much.
Oh, are we gonna have root beer floats? Because that would be pretty spectacular.
Put your name at the top. Put your name, then you read the directions, Karen.
I just want to know if we're getting root beer floats. Really, that's what this comes down to.
I'll look along and
Will I get a blue cup? Ooh.
That would be pretty
I
spectacular.
get a blue cup. Napkins.
In there yet? Oh, something's
Spoons. There's napkins. Straws. God. Hey, I didn't get a napkin. I didn't get a napkin.
Oh, right here, honey. There you go, dear.
But we better move my material because that could be bad.
oh yeah. Excuse me for a second. You just want to move my notes. In case the root beer gets a little.
Ice cream in the mine. Wait, there's actually real root beer. Root beer! Oh, I gotta drink root beer, Mommy.
Ready.
Where's that food?
Matter, we are going to make a root beer float
Whoa.
for the gas to escape.
How does a root beer float?
I don't know.
Just, you know,
Ooh, we heard it.
we heard the gas.
We heard it.
gas just removed out of the bottle.
Then we'll pour root beer into this
I
matter.
don't see any root beer.
Are we okay giving them some?
I just checked with most parents.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're done.
Thank you, Mrs. Faulkner.
No, we're not going.
Little friends are like beside
Wait, can we actually drink it?
Well, you have to wait till after we do the whole experiment.
Hey,
But
you
I
can't
bet at
drink
the
it right away.
because they are going to do the whole.
Thank you.
Oh, you didn't get a straw. You need a straw.
I'm gonna tell my brother he did it. Drink root beer.
This is our paper. We'll share,
Serenity, can
okay?
you bring your cup a little closer to Mrs. Faulkner?
Pencil.
What's the matter?
Can we get the warrants over there?
All right, so we had solid, we had a gas.
Take the warrants.
Went like this. Ready?
Oh, you're using it.
Whoops. Pew pew, pew pew, pew pew, pew pew, pew. Bubbles all over the place, right? Bubbles. We had bubbles. So in that one we draw bubbles.
This
No, yes, I lied. It's on the gas one.
Creative writing, science.
Solid, we are super close together.
Creative writing. We didn't even do it yet.
Get the gas.
Oh, right here.
Why don't we wait till
But I put it on the silent.
Whoa, look at your cup.
When I goofed, I put it on the wrong side, didn't I? This one's. I'm a teacher.
Doing my, am I allowed to do it? Oh, I do?
Oh my God. Thank you.
So they're all close together, right? And then here we're going to be kind of falling apart, right? And then here they're really over
I am. Draw with it. So
All right.
liquid. What do we do? Liquid. We just
All right.
go.
Oh, the cup. Look at
Flowy.
that. They tricked
Flowy.
me.
There you go. Flowy.
Cup would be the solid,
Don't put it too
right?
close. Yeah.
Right?
Why are you standing? I'm
Is pen good?
What is
That is good.
standing.
Make sure you know which one you're in because
Ice cream is between a solid and a liquid, guys.
We're liquid, right?
in the class. Don't read first.
This liquid?
It's considered a solid? Yes, okay. I'm going to trust you.
You're not writing anything.
With all those bubbles. You're gonna draw the picture.
Can I have a pencil?
You don't even
Rock
have to write the
solid.
letter.
Rock
Right, it
solid.
hasn't
Like,
Ice
draw the
cream.
bubbles.
No room to spare.
Ice cream is milk with bubbles, therefore it's a solid.
There you go.
So,
I have a raisin. Now, oh yeah. Now what?
multicolored.
remember.
Well, 'cause I had to
when
let
we
her borrow
talked
my
about
pen.
Where the molecules are in each of
phone
these,
would be
were they
gas
far
or-
apart or
Right, how
close
about this?
together in a
Oh,
solid?
sorry. Wait, we're listening.
Oh, let's listen.
Oh, we're gonna see the gas again too.
Gene, your sound effects are so effective.
You got it on film, right?
Here we go. Thank you.
How much?
All right. Oh, look.
I get ice cream.
What about the gas?
Oh, yeah.
Let's make sure we finish our work too. So what about the dogs on the gas?
Doesn't ever happen. They never feed us.
You're the big cheese. What's big cheese? I bring the big cheese.
How did the sun go down?
I bet they can tell you. I bet our friends over there can tell you. They're little girls.
That's an actual.
Okay, so now we gotta answer questions. We got work, Ivory. We got work.
My dad is videotaping me.
Well, it's
How can we drink it?
Of course she does.
Excuse me, Clover. I don't know why it makes a
It
foam.
has to be really far apart.
Oh, wow, yours is bubbling a lot.
Okay, so here, we gotta answer the question. Where'd our pen go? Oh, right here. All right, so is the cup, is this solid, liquid, or gas? No. Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Ice cream is solid.
Yeah, that's solid. So we're gonna write that, just like that word right there. Okay, the root beer, does it flow? Can I pour it out?
I mean, with the foam.
That's liquid.
Can you touch the cup? Can you feel the cup? Is the cup? The cup must be.
Okay. Now the liquid, the ice cream, is this solid? Like, can I pick it up on the spoon?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the ice cream, solid.
All right.
The ice cream made it do that, right?
Okay. And now, stick your finger in there.
Is ice cream a
Did anything stay on it? That's gas, right? Because it just went all over the place. So gas.
Does it go all together?
Baby.
Finally,
Okay, finally.
finally, we will consume our experiments and discuss the results using the worksheet we provided you.
Okay, we get to consume. You know what that means?
Drink it.
In America, it means eat. You can eat.
Yeehaw.
But what's about the food? And the napkin.
All yours. You can have it.
It's there. The gas inside, there's gas in the bubbles, but the foam itself has got to be a liquid, right? To trap something, you got to be a form of matter. Well, I mean, gas is a form of matter. You know what? This is for people who are paid more than me to figure out.
And what spoon to get the ice cream?
All right.
What is it? I have so much in my This is working out really well.
All right, so wait, we're not done. We got work to do.
The ice cream. What do you think the ice cream was?
Very awesome.
Vanilla.
What was it? Was it a solid, liquid, or gas? That's crazy.
I think that's awesome. Thank you.
And you did it right before
In
recess.
whose house? In your house?
You can either drink it or eat it.
Right, when we put the ice cream in the root beer, it melts. When something melts, it changes states of matter from a
And then we have to explain it.
solid.
Just two examples of the lessons we are currently working on in fifth grade.
This one isn't being had. Do you want? Big voice. Is that okay?
These are just two examples of the lessons we are currently working on in fifth grade science. We hoped you enjoyed them as much as we did.
So here's the thing, do we look like we enjoyed it?
Yes.
So yes, we enjoyed it probably as much, if not more than you did. Did you all enjoy it, really? Did you like it?
Yes.
And what was the best thing you learned about, from this experiment, other than root beer float tastes good?
You stole my answer.
Sorry.
We have a question over here. Cody, do you have a question?
Yeah. They have more vanilla insipid.
That's happening. Well, look at Miss Morocco gave you a bunch.
These were ice. Yeah, it's on the house and she's my
Nobody has that one.
Binder.
What's in it, Juliana?
And all the. Oh wow, that's really good.
Right?
That was unrehearsed, okay?
Is that her binder or a class binder?
That's her binder.
That's your binder?
Wow, look at that.
Would you like to come teach my college class?
Why was this brown? I think the root beer was brown. It was a fizzle.
see how that works? All the bubbles turn.
Oh, yeah. That'd be cool.
Thank you for having us.
The root beer floats.
It was delicious.
Thank you. So do we get
Thanks for doing my homework for me.
I'll take the ice cream.
Muchas gracias.
No.
Wait, where's Ivory?
Can I take this home? No, thank you.
You can bring it back with you.
Where'd Ivory go?
Can I?
Yes, of course.
Mommy, I want to show you all the work I did.
You going for the gavel?
She's got better handwriting than me, that's for sure.
Now you got 100%. When you get to 5th grade, you turn that in and you'll get 100%. All right, I'm sticky.
They did not provide me.
Yeah, they did, but they ran out when they got to you. I don't think they were expecting them. I don't think they were
That's
expecting
awesome.
the other.
I didn't think about that. That's good.
So you're joking?
I am very sorry if my audience did not get root beer floats,
God,
but
we didn't share with any of them.
that's the way it rolls. But I would like to know if I got 100 on my quiz.
You definitely got 100. You gave all of us the answers as
Oh,
you
sorry.
spoke out loud through the whole class.
Sorry.
Looks like she doesn't leave without her
All
notebook.
right. Well,
She'll know.
Good answer.
personally,
She's coming.
yeah.
I
Oh, let me look quick. Quick. I promise. Quick.
a lot of great answers in there, by the way. I was a science teacher.
You also have better handwriting than
I
me.
am a science. No, well, yeah, you have better handwriting than both of those.
Which of these?
Mom used to get
The blue and the green.
Oh, you're
Thank
keeping
you.
it up. It's a legacy.
my dad's my grandmother was a teacher, and she said my dad's handwriting was like a poor grade. So
Look, yeah,
It's cool.
What's not a myth?
I'm not gonna lie, that did.
You guys did fabulous. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for visiting.
Thanks, ladies. Nice
Thank you.
See you in the judge.
All right.
Okay, well, I hate to get, exactly, I hate to get back into the flow, but we do have a public forum, so does anybody have anything they'd like to share with the school committee? So, hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda A. We have some warrants and the minutes of the meeting of September 12th. And I will entertain a motion to move consent agenda A.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jack, seconded by Aaron. Is there any discussion?
Does anyone have copies of those notes? I'm just
the
trying to figure
minutes?
out if I was here.
Oh. September 12th, it was the beginning, yes, you were. Yes, you were. That's what we were talking about, was it?
I missed a meeting.
It was the very last meeting,
Which is September 2nd,
No,
wasn't it?
September 12th.
The
Tammy
12th.
was at that one.
yeah,
Oh, it is September. It's still September.
yeah.
Oh,
Still
that
September.
was, okay. All right. I think I missed something. I missed,
If we weren't here.
You were here because you were supposed to be a BB.
yes, I know, I was here and I wasn't supposed to stay as long as I did.
Not that it
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
So it was moved
That's what I
by
always
Jack,
thought.
seconded by Aaron to approve consent agenda A. All
They
those
told
in
us that at
favor?
training.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nays? I mean, that is the nays. Abstentions? Okay. School committee report, regional agreement update.
So we had a meeting last night. They're blurring together.
They're all blowing.
And we're making a lot of good progress, again. Just to review the process that we've gone through so far. The Regional Agreement Committee, Regional Agreement Amendment Committee, formed, when, April? About April. It consists of, from each town, a school committee member, a representative from the Board of Selectmen, a representative from FinCom, a parent representative from each town, and a community representative from each town. And then non-voting members include the school committee chair and these two gentlemen, the superintendent and assistant superintendent. So we formed the committee. The school committee then voted to hire the Mars consultants, the men from Mars, Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools. And the consultants have been guiding us through the process and advising us. They've been bringing back sample language that we can either approve or reject to put into our agreement. We've had 6 meetings so far, and we've gotten through the entire agreement at this point. Our focus has been cleaning up language, making it more readable to the layperson, updating language to reflect current operations, and then adding language that would create a process that would allow for reorganization. I want to stress that part. We haven't been developing a plan for reorganization. We have been adding language that would allow us, what did I just say? That would allow us to reorganize, which would then move us on to phase 2, which, should the vote come back in the affirmative, that's when the planning would start. So that wouldn't be, that's what we're doing right now. Language that would allow for reorganization. So, we've gotten through all of it. It was a lot. Our next steps, now that we've finished going through the agreement, it comes back to at our next meeting, we're going to vote on it. Then we are going to send it to district and town councils to make sure that everything lines up, that we aren't throwing something in there that turns out to violate law. We don't want to do that. Nope. After it comes back, we would then send it to the boards of selectmen for review, and that's when we would begin our communication plan. That would include public forums, meetings in both towns, media outreach. That's when we're going to really start getting the word out of what we're going to be voting on at town meeting in May. Okay? Any questions?
Go ahead.
Why did I ask?
What are the biggest changes that you've seen that you've had to make?
The most numerous would be just, well, we had to change it so that it reflected what we actually have,
Actual
the students we
practice.
have in the middle school. I mean, we still have it as
Junior, senior high school.
junior, senior high school. What is it? What do we?
So
We had to change it so that it's 6
so the
through 8.
new, it's more of a governance document. It really outlines how somebody is elected to the school committee, how they can be removed from the school committee, how they get voted in, and kind of that process.
Were there any
It's-
changes to that part of it?
Not at this time, but we are considering seating folks at a later time other than April, because April is quite difficult. You get elected in April, and you come on to this committee, and you have the end of the budget season, the start of the evaluation season. But Millville is also considering moving their town election to after the town meeting dates, and so perhaps there'll be some more dialogue between both towns and us to really see that how do we make it so that somebody who comes on isn't thrown into a you need to know everything now type of a situation. So that's been one of the discussions, has not been resolved.
Okay.
Would a fair way to just kind of summarize it be, we basically got the language cleaned up to reflect the current structure, and then looked at additional language that would allow for the process of reorganizing to take place. And so I think that's, kind of like the big pieces that I had noticed as we worked through that.
Yeah, and it ties.
And to the agreement itself, we put in language that outlines existing practices.
Right.
Like, I don't think we had our assessment methods, or what was it that we didn't have
Our
in there?
budget.
Budget
We had
process wasn't
4 different things, and it's, so, and it now meets state law, which it didn't, it, reflects current state law that has been put in place. It now clearly outlines how the budget process works and the percentage associated with each town. It more clearly defines how a town can remove itself from the regional agreement, or how we could add a new town into the regional agreement. And it's not as, it still would be a lengthy process and a very expensive process for either town, but it's not as confusing as to, on the 5th day of the 7th solstice under, you know, your third child, or whatever the case. It was just really hard to read, so we've cleaned up the language to make it read a little bit easier.
The language that dealt with staffing in 1982,
Right.
like when the schools, when the districts combined, that we just don't need it anymore. So,
Thank you for taking that.
well, you're welcome. That's all I have.
So as Sarah said, it will go, you know, before anybody who wants to hear about it, and we'll schedule some very specific things, but the document will come to the school committee for a final approval before it goes off to the towns.
Will we get that for review before we go to the meeting? Or
Yes.
we're supposed to
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah,
presented
yeah.
before, I had that. It'll be presented to the committee, the school committee, before, goes, I think before it goes to the Board of Selectmen. That would make sense, right? Because if we voted it down, why?
Yeah, right,
I do that.
right,
And it would require a majority of all
of us.
of us, so, whether we're
To
here or
even
not.
go forward. Yeah, so what Sarah's saying is it requires the majority, so even if it's not a majority of the.
It's two-thirds.
It's two-thirds.
Yeah.
It's not two-thirds of the quorum that night, it's two-thirds of all of us, of the 8, whether you're here or not. Have to approve it to move forward. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Dr. DeFalco.
Thanks. So the second item under my report is a follow-up conversation with the committee that we started, I think it was early to mid-August, when we had some discussion around the FY20 budget cycle, where we needed to reduce stipends within our budget by about $50,000, and we brought forward a proposal to the committee that was less than that, but we had looked at a reduction in our, what was referred to as central detention, which ran Monday through Thursday at both the middle and high school for, you know, students that were issued a detention for one reason or another, where children would go after school for about an hour and make up, you know, homework, or, you know, sometimes sit quietly, read, but it was a consequence for, you know, some type of a behavior that would warrant such. So we made a recommendation to the committee to reduce the budget by $10,000, because we had built that into the FY20, in the FY20 budget cycle, we had built that into getting our number to where it needed to be, and we were able to do that. However, since that meeting, and prior to that meeting, we've been having some discussions as a leadership team around this notion of detention, and really around the impact. If you look at our district blueprint for improvement, our third strategy around the whole child, really looking at how we remove those or minimize those non-academic barriers that are in front of our student learning, and behavior is clearly, you know, a kind of outcome of some of those non-academic barriers. And what is a different way, a better way to treat the issue, right? So we know with a traditional detention, there's your accountability arm, right? That's holding the student accountable for whatever the behavior was, which certainly needs to happen. You know, the school community itself needs to be supported in that. The student needs to be held accountable for a behavior that, you know, is one that is less than ideal, to be frank, that leads to some type of a consequence of that nature. However, we also know that just the accountability arm doesn't necessarily change the behavior in itself. So what we have before the committee this evening, and Dr. Laporte's going to speak to us in a moment about the logistics of this, is something that we are looking at, which is a more restorative and or corrective type plan that would not only hold the student accountable through needing to stay after school for an hour, for said amount of time, but also would be provided with an intervention. And so that intervention would look and match the behavior that led the student to needing to stay after school for that. So Dr. Laporte, I don't know if you want to come join us up front and share a little bit with the committee. You should have in front of you a handout that looks like this. Tammy, Wendy, you should have one of these?
Yep.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody has one.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
You too.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. So just to summarize what Dr. DeFalco said, we've been trying to come up with a solution to help these students correct their behavior. We felt that because we're becoming more of a SEL-aware district, that we should add some of that to these students in the afternoon, so we can pull from what they're learning during the day and even extend it a little further after school when they have a behavior that we feel needs a little more attention than your typical, okay, you're staying after school for an hour. So we're hoping that we can use our professionals in our buildings to help us create these programs, depending on the behavior that's before them, that we can have lessons, we can have conversations, we can have sessions with them to minimize or help them see, you know, the errors of their ways and find better ways that they could have handled the situation. So, you know, this isn't put in stone. We would like to do it 2 days a week, and they're, you know, that way they know these are the days that you're required. Hopefully that will cut down on some of the concerns we have from parents when, you know, they're fighting different days. We can give them options that these are the days that they're, you know, going to be seen. We will be making it a very reflective hour for them to really see how their behavior not only affects themselves but others, and hopefully give them, you know, cues and key points that they can really reflect on and try and use in the classroom. You know, and hopefully, you know, teachers will see the benefit of all this and join in, following with some of the follow-up that we may have, and they'll see it from the lessons that they do and what we're providing with them also. At the high school level, they're also going to include the restorative hours that, you know, when they have the academic 50s, because they've been missing school, they can use this time too to make up some work and cut back on the academic 50s that they may receive also.
Aaron, are you able to answer a question in regards to the high school part of it, or?
I can try, and if not, Mr. Dudek's here, he's more than
So
willing.
right now, the way our handbook reads, I believe the new policy we approved for attendance was 3 unexcused absences in a quarter is an administrative 50 until they've had the attendance met for the next quarter.
Right.
Is this stating that they have an opportunity to make up that 50 before the next quarter?
Yes, he's basically saying, so say the student is missing some hours in English. So then it may be 1 or 2 hours where they
Right.
would have received it. So they would stay after for that 1 or 2 hours and make up that time then.
It would.
Sure.
And do one of these programs, or do
They would be doing
learning,
English.
the learning.
But then they would also be having a conversation of, you know, how did you get
Why
in this
did you- yeah.
predicament in the first place?
And then they do not get an administrative 50.
So that was the collaborative conversation that we had to discuss what other things can we do outside of that academic 50. And currently, the policy or practice is that if you receive an academic 50 after your third or after receiving more than 3 unexcused absences, it was an automatic academic 50. That could happen within the first 3 weeks of school. So we looked at it as, is this an opportunity for us to be able to, quote, restore credit by having students earn that credit back by giving back that 1 hour for that period. So if a student misses a 4th day and it's an entire school day, then they need to make up 5 hours or 1 hour per course. So I think this is something that we've talked about as an opportunity to be able to regain credit that way and not have to wait until the end of the next quarter to be able to get that back. So, I think there are things that we mentioned last year a little bit about, if a student gets an academic 50 in the fourth quarter, realistically, we need to go and document that, wait and monitor and see how they do after the end of their first quarter of the next year. So I think this is just another opportunity for them to be able to regain the credit as an opportunity.
Anyone else? Would it remain their choice?
I think we're giving students and families choice, and if
Options,
and options if they want to go and use that hour to be productive and get the assignment from their English, history teacher, whoever, they have that opportunity to be able to do that within the quarter. If they want to just say, we'll take the academic 50 and we'll look at second quarter. That's the policy we have now, but I think this is just an additional opportunity.
Yep.
We may coach them and say it might be a better opportunity to think about that and not dig ourselves in a hole. But right now, just thinking and brainstorming, we're providing them with that choice.
That's great. Tammy.
So is the hope that if a student has to recover an English hour, it's with an English teacher? Or it's going to be, how is the staffing, when we talk about sort of restorative justice practices, are there staff at either school other than the administrators? I'm assuming you have some training that actually know what the process is going to be or what the intent is? So again, I'll ask the first part. If you miss English, are you going to do it with an English teacher, or are you just doing it with whatever random teacher signs up that day? First question.
For me, I think the idea is for an adult that's present in the room being provided with the assignment from said teacher, and the students independently working on that assignment in that hour. So it may not be your English teacher or math teacher, but it's someone who's present and available and understands that they're in there for a specific time period to work on a said assignment, prepared by that teacher.
And so I guess the second question is, we have a list of these for the new practice would have the options of these programs. Do we have staff that are trained in these programs to be able to facilitate this hour?
We do have some staff that is trained in this. We're bringing it out into our school community this year, different lessons, but we can take from their resources those lessons and apply it to whatever the behavior is that we're looking to correct.
So is there staffing already in mind for, I'm assuming this is going to be a one person or a teacher taking on this responsibility like detention was, but obviously it's cut in half or whatever program, however you want to call it, but there'll be one particular person that's assigned to this particular, I don't want to say stipend, but this particular.
So,
We're approving a stipend.
Right.
well, but I guess my conversation that I had, and I'll bring it up, was that it could potentially be different people at different times. So it's not, as in the past, one person, you have central detention, you're that person that time.
That's what I want clarity on.
So it could be that today, this Tuesday, based on the people that are going to be there, could be the adjustment counselor, because that's the best program to have for that group of people, or an adjustment counselor could have Tuesdays, and a school psychologist could have the Thursday. That's how I understood it, that it would potentially have to determine interest too, right?
Right, yeah, so the whole idea here is so we want to work with any staff that's interested in doing this, but also that's interested in building their capacity if it's not there. So you would assume that a guidance, adjustment, school psychologist, perhaps a team chair, depending upon their background, those that are formally trained in behavioral sciences, if you will, and know kind of the inner workings of that would be kind of a natural fit for this. However, we do have staff that are part of our SEL committee, for instance, that are really leading the charge in that strategy 3 of our district blueprint for improvement, that are not in any of those categories, but are really interested in studying this work and using these materials and programs. So we would open it up to folks that are interested, but our general sense is that individuals that are formally trained in that social emotional learning realm or behavioral realm would probably be interested. So that being said, we may not have the same guidance counselor, let's say, or adjustment counselor that wants to do this Tuesday and Thursday every week for the year. And what you'll see, we're laying out about 35 weeks, which would be the remainder of the school year, should the committee decide to support this moving forward. And so, you know, with those 35 weeks, you may not have the same individual that wants to take this on. This is very different than central detention. It cannot be underscored enough. So we are looking for those that have the formal training or those that are really interested in learning deeply this work.
My only concern is that I see students needing consistency, so having different people in and out, and I just don't see that being effective in terms of, you know, the program and trying to run a program. So that was my original question, is if we have all these people in mind, who are the people, and is there going to be consistency within the 35 weeks? I guess that's my question moving forward, and are these people trained? I do have a concern based off of the answer that was given to Tammy, is that if you have 3, and this might be more for the high school, I'm not sure for the middle school, but if you have, you know, if you have to make up 3 hours in English because you have an administrative 50, you make up those hours, you get out of that administrative 50, does that mean you could be late another 3 times? Because you've made up that administrative 50?
Can I address the consistency piece? Just because I heard 2 issues.
Yeah, there are 2 things.
Yeah,
Yep,
is that
so
okay?
I the consistency piece for me is a concern.
And I would love to speak to that, and then perhaps Mike or Jan can get into the other piece. But I would actually put forward, if students need consistency in their after-school restoration period, because they're there so often, we're doing something really wrong.
Right. Agreed.
Because we shouldn't have the same group of kids in there time after time after time after time after time after, right? Because there is an accountability piece to this, right? So the student that ends up in there, in that situation, you know, perhaps he gets or she gets angry and flips their desk, right? And ends up in this restoration period. If that's consistently happening, then like we're missing the mark on that.
Well,
You see what I'm saying? So
but-
they shouldn't be in there every Tuesday and Thursday. That's a
But
problem.
in terms of monitoring the consistency of the students that are in there and the reason for them being in there, I would think that there would need to be a consistent person to see that and monitor that.
That's
I
the
know it can
assistant
be done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I see that restoration piece very separate than I see the academic piece.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting to
I
say,
think
they're
that,
two
I think
separate.
that they're two really separate. You know, one is programmatic, and I think there could be some programmatic things with the academic, because I think whoever that person is, and I'm going to call him a counselor for the sake of just general statement, but whoever that counselor is can certainly, with the academic piece, talk to somebody about, you know, how do we make sure that you don't do another 3 days, or this doesn't happen again, or we don't see you again, as part of it. But the academic piece, where they're making up their English, or they're making up their science, or they're making up their math, really has to be personal study, really has to, I mean, because you'd have to have a different teacher, you'd have to have 12 different teachers, because there could be 12 different, I don't know. Or maybe nobody will miss if they know they have to do this. Who
And
knows?
I think just to answer or respond to your question, you know, we're not looking for, I mean, I think this is an option for a student that hits 4 and it's at the end of the quarter and is unfortunately receiving that 50, and we're waiting another 45 days to see whether or not they're going to follow that attendance policy. Now, I think it's quite difficult for somebody who's consistently missing school to go and try to make up a full day of school to make up 6 hours in restorative hour, because it's, for every period missed, it's 1 hour per period. And I think we would be proactive enough to look at that and say, we need to be doing something different. I think this is just an option for a kiddo who's coming in that has 4 days, and it's worked, you know, where we had some students come in during the summer to really make up an assignment, and that changed them from receiving a credit or not, or being eligible for summer school or not. I think if anyone's missing more than 4 days in a quarter, we would have to be a little more proactive in terms of how we address that. But again, I think it's just an opportunity and a chance for a kid to be able to receive credit and not fail for the year or the term based off of just the attendance piece, which, I mean, it does affect average, but it's, you know, you have students that miss 5 or 6 days in a quarter and receive a passing grade. But it looks like an academic 50 on their transcript due to the attendance piece behind it.
So it would take you 3 weeks to make up one missed day.
One missed day.
But there's also a situation where you could have the 3 unexcused absences and be tardy, and in high school,
Oh, right.
the
I
rotating
understand
schedule,
that.
it could just
Yeah.
be one class.
It could
If
be
you
one
came in
class.
at second period. So there are different, I think there needs to be more information in this part of it for us to be able to insert it back into the handbook, for it to work the way you're saying right now. So that, I agree, Jane, that it's two separate.
two separate
Two
things.
separate pieces, but,
And would both, is it one person per week? Is that the intent? One person at middle school, one person at the high school per Tuesday or Thursday?
Yes, yeah.
So the same person would be doing these lessons and being with the other kid doing academics potentially? Or would they be scheduled different days?
It could be. It depends on the level of interest we get back from the staff.
so I think, I want clarity on the proposal. So it says, we are proposing a change from the traditional central detention hour to a more corrective hour, which I just want to insert here that I think that is a positive change. But further on, it says, we'd like to see this new after-school program supervised by our adjustment counselors, guidance counselors, school psychologists, and/or other professional staff members. So is this in an order of preference? And by other professional staff members, is that specifically Unit A?
Yes.
And are these written in order of?
No, they're not prioritized. Again, when we were laying this out, the notion is that your adjustment guidance, school psychs, they're already formally trained in that behavioral SEL world. So it certainly would make more sense,
It's
but
ideal.
it would be ideal. But we do have, again, we have teachers on our SEL, Social Emotional Learning Committee for the district that are classroom teachers that are like, they're just really interested in this work and have been doing, quite frankly, have been studying it for at least a year that I'm aware of.
You know, when we were talking about this too, we did address concerns about consistency. And as Dr. DeFalco mentioned, this is not a tier 3 intervention for really struggling kids. This is, as we were discussing, there's one-off behaviors. Kids are making poor choices. They are doing the wrong thing, and they need some time to reflect on that and take some corrective actions possibly. And when we were talking about the consistency, a lot of that has to do with the consistency of the messaging that takes place, and that would come from the organization of the program and the resources that we're using also. And as Dr. DeFalco mentioned, if someone is consistently having those same behaviors, this is not the place where that would end up being addressed. I think there would be other individualized services that we would be looking to direct the students to.
Yeah. So that leads a good segue to my next question, which is, are we taking, if this is approved, are we taking everything in the handbook, every infraction right now that says this behavior equals central detention, is it going to become a restorative
Can
hour?
I jump in on that? So that was my question is, it says action required. Are we making a motion to approve the funding and the program as a study so that we don't have to make adjustments to the handbook until the end and then?
We want to do it for the
But
year.
I would
But how do
assume
you
that that would
implement
be
it
at the
to the
end.
kids that already got the handbook?
Well,
3
because
weeks ago?
we're approving it as
We didn't use the term study, but we want to do it for the year, for the next, I had put
well,
for 35
it's similar
weeks, I
to a
think.
study though, so we don't have
Yeah.
to make adjustments at the next time.
Right,
for
and
the
you
handbook.
could, I mean, you could essentially, just like we do when we change any contractual type of thing, is do an addendum that says, for this year, for the 1920 school year, we are instituting a study pilot.
But the students need to know
Well, that's who would get
where
that.
this is coming from. They're the ones that,
How is it going to reach the students?
right. And what determines this discipline? Is it anything right now that equaled central detention, or are we reworking the punishment? My favorite saying in my house this week has been that time has to equal the crime. So that wasn't a positive thing, but are we re-looking at all of those infractions that are already listed in our handbook? I think the high school has more than the middle school, but.
And can I just chime in? That might help with that question. I know when we spoke at length about this with the middle school team, they have on any given day 3 to 6 students, right? And then the high school has between 6 and 10, 15, somewhere in that realm. So the numbers are small in terms of just the frequency and the sheer number of kids. So, one of the pieces with that would be looking at the infractions that are getting those students repeatedly in there and using that as a starting point.
Is the stipend only for the 2019-2020 school year, so it would be brought back to our attention?
Yes.
For the 2020-2021?
Yeah, and our thinking was that revisit with the committee, and we certainly could do it sooner if the committee would like, but at minimum around the handbook time or just before the handbook time, to talk about how this is working and to see if we're actually getting the impact from it that we are hoping we'll get. So absolutely, we would look to run it for this year. And we also need to have the formal discussion with the union about it as well, because it's a different, it's a new opportunity, and it's one that's kind of reorganized and, existing opportunity with a different, looking at it through a different lens. So you'll see that in there too.
And so the number is 5,000. Is the thought that it would be dispersed in an hourly rate to whomever is receiving it? Okay.
Right. Yeah, it's at the 35 an hour at $70 because it's 2, right, for Tuesday, 70 for Thursday, which is 140 a week times 35 weeks is 4,900. So it's right around the 5,000.
So I'll make the motion for the use of funds for,
Let me just,
No?
anybody
Oh,
else?
sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll make, do you want to say something?
No, I was saying, or we could have discussion after.
Right, but if you want to say something
No,
now,
I'm
you
good.
can.
I already talked.
I just want to make sure it's for this year to be brought back up at the end of the year, see how it went, what changes need to be in place before we approve something long-term like this and change the entire handbook and everything else that comes into place for it. So I'm going to make a motion to use the funds for restorative hour after-school program to authorize administration to spend up to $5,000 for the 2019-2020 school year to provide an after-school intervention that is built around restorative practices.
I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved by Wendy and seconded by Aaron. Is there any further discussion?
I just have one question. Where are we moving money? What cost center is this coming out of?
So in our salary savings line, just in our salaries, what we've been able to save with new hires, we're able to, Mr. Aaronworth and I were able to find the resources there.
And I also want to make it very clear that this needs to be clearly communicated between both of the schools. The reason for it, why it's there, and the hope that we plan to see out of it needs to be communicated so that not only students know, but parents know and staff are aware of what to expect.
We can certainly review a communication before it goes out. If there's something that goes out to students and families. Do that.
I think just in the review process, it's important to get the teacher feedback, because I know, being in the business, a kid will say, that's fine, you can send me to ISS, I like sitting in ISS. So if that's what the kids are saying, we need to kind of think about just make sure teachers have some voice in that review process, because they'll know whether it's working as far as especially the academic piece of things. so.
Yeah, and I think that's the other part of the equation, is we need to make sure that we're working with students that have the behavioral issues and addressing those issues, but we also want to support our staff, right? And so when there is a behavior that warrants that, I know it's very important to Dr. Laporte, Mr. Ducharme, and our whole leadership team that we're able to show that support as well, you know, to the staff side of it, so that their feedback will be important.
Any other discussion? There's a motion on the floor to authorize the administration to spend up to $5,000 for the 2019-2020 school year to provide an after-school intervention that is built around restorative practices. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I think we need another motion.
As another part of that, we need to negotiate that piece with Unit A, so I would entertain a motion to allow the administration to start that bargaining process with Unit A.
So moved.
Moved by Aaron, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jack. There's been a motion to negotiate the new stipend opportunity with Unit A for the restorative hour after-school intervention. Any discussion on that?
Just a clarifying question. This allows Jason and/or Matt to have the conversation. The language will then come back to us for approval, signature, as well as the folks of Unit A. So it's
Correct.
not going to be one of those agreements that ends
On a
up in
napkin.
Jason's file that we don't know about. Okay.
No,
We're
absolutely.
done with that practice. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, thank you very much.
So I would like to request to see more information on the high school academic recovery
Plan, right?
plan. Just so we can have all of our i's dotted and even just from the scenarios that were mentioned tonight.
Again, how it's presented to the students and
Right.
how it,
I think we all know that there are kids that it would work for and kids that it wouldn't, but I just want to make sure that that's a clear, that it's clearly communicated, I guess, on how you were able to be part of that.
So what's happening now before it's rolled out?
We're being very creative. There's been a lot of conversation, in my office. There's been some mornings that I'm seeing kids, there's lunches that I'm seeing kids, where we're working things out.
okay.
This will be a big help.
It has,
be a
what about
tremendous
the high
help.
school? Has there been central detention?
We have not had central detentions. I think it's similar to what Janice is stating. A lot of conversations, restorative conversations, and talking it out and thinking about next steps and what we can do to improve so that we don't come back to making the same quote mistake.
I think this is an example of something that we definitely should have been ahead of for first day of school, just for kids' purposes, for consistency. I think it's something that we could have had in place when we talked about getting rid of that.
Working as
Get
quickly
new
as we
ideas
can.
as they come.
We appreciate
There's
the
always a new
feedback.
buzzword, and sometimes they just come
Absolutely.
available to you.
We will keep
All right.
trying.
Well, thank you very much. I'm
Thank you.
Thanks.
excited that that's a new opportunity for people to learn. It's all about learning.
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Aaronworth,
Yes.
you're on.
Certainly. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss was the safety vestibule project at the high school. So we are looking to engage in a design project to create a safety vestibule at the entry to the high school. Currently, when someone is buzzed into the high school through the front door, once they're in through the front door, they can go wherever they like. They can access the students, they can head down to central office, and they don't have to check in with the front office because there's nothing leading them there. We really have been talking about hardening our security and making sure that the kids are safe, and people shouldn't be able to just get to the students right when they walk in a front door. So we're looking to create a structure that would direct the visitors to have to come to the front office first and check in so that we knew what their intentions were, and then would allow them to go wherever they need to go in the building. I have already done some preliminary conversations with a project manager and a company that designs doors. The estimate is that it will be less than a $50,000 project, which would mean that it does not have to be put out for bid, but I would be soliciting 3 written quotes on whatever the specific information is that we can provide the individuals. And we are looking to use some of the E&D funds to go forth with this project, because there will need to be a project manager. There will need to be a design team that specifies what this looks like and ensures that it's in compliance with all of the fire and building safety regulations. And then, of course, there would be the construction piece. Our hope was that we would get authorization to use up to $50,000 from E&D once E&D is certified. And the process for that would entail us committing to using the E&D. The school committee would vote on the use of the E&D, and then we would bring the project forward and request the use, I would say, explain our intention to use E&D to the towns. And if the towns wanted to vote on that, if they felt strongly that we shouldn't be using E&D in that fashion, then they could vote. Otherwise, if the towns take no action in 45 days, then we would, that's their given approval. So we did put together some language for a motion. I'm happy to entertain questions regarding the purpose of a safe vestibule in the front of the
Can
building.
you describe what it would look like? I love
The idea.
I love the idea. Obviously, you can take a left without a doubt and lose
Get to the
yourself in
kids.
those stairways as quickly as anybody from Mike's office could get to you.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the effort and the thought. Tell me what it would look like.
So
though.
some of the thoughts have involved having doors just built into the front hallway that would be on to the right side of the office door, that would allow someone to get to the office door but not past the office door to the students. And then, however, a little more shallow on the left side if you're facing the front of the building, so that they wouldn't have access to go to the left of the building.
Do students have to go through there to get to any other points of the building?
We would have the push bars on the inside, so the doors push out, but we would reroute the transitions during the day. So I know Mr. Dusham already talking about that, in terms of just the traffic flow of the kids and the way they would pass through.
And a lot of
Well, I
these,
think it defeats the purpose if Johnny can open the door for Mr. Smith. He takes the left.
I think a lot of those answers and those questions will be addressed during the design phase of the project. We would like to start looking into it and engage a designer or architect to explore what exactly it would look like, and then we can determine what, if any, the impact would be on the students or the flow of traffic. And then, of course, we would weigh the options. Obviously, the designs would be brought to the school committee for feedback.
Because Tammy, I would argue the same thing can happen here. If I come in those first set of doors and I'm supposed to go get buzzed into the office, there's a student who could push the second set of doors and in I go.
That staff can see that door.
Yeah.
Mrs.
No, I get that, but I'm just
staff
saying
can
that,
see Mike's-
that
Mike's setup does not.
potential exists.
Yeah, there will be
Somebody can come
cameras.
open these
Yeah.
other doors.
I understand that, Jane.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think at the high school, it's much easier to take a left and not be seen than at this
Oh, I
building, for
agree.
sure.
I agree.
I believe,
And
a
the high
piece-
school already doesn't flow very nicely with the wings and the ups and the downs, and
So-
you have to go outside to get to the other side.
So that's my question. I was told at one point in time that if we do a substantial building design change, that it would instigate the whole, we're grandfathered for ADA. So will something like this institute that whole question of access to our building?
They already don't have access to the hallway we're talking about.
I understand.
Yeah, I can't answer that specifically. What I would say is typically when things are grandfathered in, it's specific to the project that is happening. So if you're rebuilding the building or re-gutting the bathrooms or entryways, then that would have to come up to code for ADA. I think that it's, again, I'm not an expert, but I do believe that it's specific to the type of project, and as we would simply be adding some additional doorways, I don't think that would require an overhaul of all of the rest of the building to make sure that it was compliant.
But that piece would be.
That piece would have to be.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this is long overdue, so I'm glad.
Oh, yeah, I don't, yeah, I just,
To your,
Trying to get,
to your point, to your point as well, that you mentioned earlier, there will be a visual in the vestibule so that the secretary can see whether or not a student is looking to let somebody in or the person is going to try to force their way in, so to speak.
Would they still be buzzed in, the front door?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. We're trying to establish the system at all of the buildings where a person can't just get simple access to the students. So even here, if you noticed, I know we mentioned it about the security updates, but there's a second buzzer on the door. There's a camera installed so that the secretary now can see outside before someone is buzzed in. Those front doors will no longer be left open. Someone will have to buzz in. They'll be identified again by a camera and by the secretary, and then they can be buzzed in through the second set of doors. That's our hope for AFM, which is going to have that work done within the next week or so as the security systems are moving forward. And then that's our hope for the high school, provided that we can get this project up and running.
and would we eventually do it at Millville, the same situation? exists
Millville,
there?
oh, I apologize. We're going to be doing it at Millville already. They already have the double doors, so the two sets of doors. So during this round of the security implementation, we are going to be setting up the same system there as well.
So this would give every school that
Every
double
school.
locking mechanism. And at the high school, it would secure the academic wing so that when you get buzzed in, there's nowhere you can go but the main office. Because the other doors you need to be buzzed into to go right or left. And they would be cameraed up so that.
I'm very much a visual, I'll wait for the design. Do we have to talk to town capital people on this?
This is our building.
No, it's our regional building. The conversation with the towns, as I mentioned, is the use of E&D. They have the right to oppose the use of E&D, though it would have no impact on their assessment. So typically, something like this, which is a small capital project that we don't want to charge the towns for, we can tap into that, and they would hopefully be agreeable.
And I think it would be okay to remind them we don't have a capital account, not for the lack of trying. That was denied on our town floor,
yeah.
so, and it was said, you have your E&D, so it's an appropriate use for the need.
Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Wendy, is there a
Second.
second? Seconded by Tammy. There's a motion on the floor that the Blackstone Millville Regional District School Committee authorize the district administration to spend an amount of money not to exceed $50,000 for the purpose of designing and building a secure vestibule at the Blackstone Millville Regional High School. Said money will be drawn from the district's excess and deficiency fund. This authorization will be contingent upon the certification of the district's excess and deficiency fund, as well as there being no further action required on behalf of either member town. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay.
Can I just add, not, it has to do with doors, but I wanted to get through this part.
Yeah, you can add.
I actually have a concern about the complex doors that are on the kindergarten side, because now that we don't have a secretary on that side, and we have that door just there, and it's not in use, let's say, for the main entrance, I worry that the kindergarten wing, I would like to know what the plan is for these kindergartners and, you know, any students that might be a flight risk, I guess you could say. That door is there, and it's being maybe manned by a camera that's on the other side of the complex. So I'm just wondering, you know, is there anybody in that office, or is it empty? You know, is it, because when you walk into that particular JFK, it's very dark, not much there, no place except for, then you take a left and you have that whole kindergarten wing. So I'm concerned about that door. I know we're talking about doors, but I'm definitely concerned.
That's a great question, and
it leads into the next?
It
All
does
right.
lead directly
I
into
just,
it.
we had the
However,
door conversation, and I had to put it out there
there's-
because I had this visual
you were
of
memorizing.
I know, well, we have runners at my school,
But
and
there's,
they're gone, and you say to yourself, okay, are there cameras? I'm assuming they're cameras. I know that you can be buzzed in from that door, but thinking of those little kids that,
Who can buzz out?
who can just see you later. I'm just wondering, has there been a plan in place for this particular door entryway to be supervised? Because the way it's set up, there's nothing there.
And there's a
no-
cafeteria too, right?
But that's on the right, and then there's really nobody that you could look
That's a
out the
busy
window.
time.
Yeah, I really worry about that particular door.
We did too, and Matt will address the specifics. One of the reasons we moved the main office to the other side was they had the
Double
double door
doors.
system, and our concern was that single entrance and the caf right there full of kids, right? And
Right.
not needing to, the office is on the other side of that hall, so
Right.
to redirect all the main traffic, we shifted it to the AFM side. But I don't know if you want to speak to the
I was going to say, I appreciate the point of having some visual of it, and as we are installing security cameras, the plans for exactly where the cameras are placed is not set in stone right now, and they've not begun work on that building, so I can actually speak to
Or even if,
the
you know,
security
when that
company.
door gets open, there's a beep.
Correct.
Like
I
there's
was gonna say,
something.
Set-
alarm.
Yep.
Or
There's
one of those fire.
I mean, I feel like with those little kids over there, they're susceptible to anything, and I worry that they could just walk out. Not so much the safety going in, because I know there's locks, I know there's cameras, but what's the mechanism so that they
Well,
can't
oh, yes.
push out?
When I was referencing the camera, I meant it would be on the screen. All of the
Yeah.
cameras are going to be visible via the internet, so it will be on the screen of the secretary that's in the other office. So even though they're not physically there, they would still be able to monitor that door regularly. And I love the idea.
But could you
of
see
an
a
alarm.
kindergartner
Yeah.
jetting and the
That person will
secretary on
meet
the,
him by May.
you know,
Be
100
looking
miles
the other
away.
way, looking, and they may be looking the other way.
And maybe looking the other way, so.
Of course, we completely appreciate that.
I just think we need to like come up with a, or I would like to see, I would like to see what's in place for that particular entryway.
I'll speak further to the company about
Buzzer system.
a buzzer system for
you.
that area.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Emergency, one of those lift things that no child can well, the child can probably figure out, no adult will be able to get out of the door.
The problem is you need to get out in a fire.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fire, it's a lift door.
No, but like a notification system. might
Some
be
type of beeping or notification that somebody has.
signal if it
It
opens.
would signal someone
Yeah.
in the office and/or someone closer.
You know, you
to
go
that
down the
door.
other halls, you have teachers that'll be like, where are you going? But that particular area, there's nothing there. And now without the secretary, it's dark. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but, or smile. Thank you.
So, I also just wanted to provide an update on some of the other projects that we have going on. As everyone knows, there's a number of them. At the JFK AFM complex, right now, I shouldn't say all, most of the interior work has been completed. All of the classroom windows have been completed at this point. The gymnasium is scheduled to be finished by the end of Columbus Day. Doors still need to be removed and replaced over a couple of weekends. I want to mention again that there will be some plastic encasements there because there's some asbestos abatement necessary around the door frames, but it's minor abatement work, and it will be encased and disposed of immediately while they're on site during the weekends. And all of the work is scheduled to be done by Veterans Day weekend. So that's the goal of the project. The paving, the last I was here, we were going to have the driveway here paved, at least patched. It has been done. We are going to look to some longer-term solutions for the driveway, but that will be part of a larger capital plan. Right now, I checked in with the town administrator. I have not heard any new information on when the paving of the complex will take place. I know that they still, I'm not sure if a request for bids has been put out yet, but that can be a timely process.
Is it the whole thing or just the drop off?
I'd have to confirm that. I'm not sure. I thought it was my understanding was it was the whole parking lot. Because there was discussion of where teachers might need to park if it was done during the school year. So, the Millville boiler project, Dr. DeFalco and myself went just recently, and we attended the Millville Capital Planning Committee to discuss the plans further and give them a better understanding of the financing of it. It was terrific because we brought Greenie with us, and they were really better able to understand the need for this type of a change. The pictures that he brought of the rotting pipes outside were pretty influential, and his knowledge, his institutional knowledge of all of the things that have gone on and all of the repairs that have been regularly done to the system really helped point out the fact that it's an urgent need. The next thing, I know we do have, I just scheduled last night to attend the Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday, so I will be there. The OPM and the architect cannot be there on Tuesday evening, but Greenie is able to come and do a second performance for us.
Dinner or something.
We'll have dinner for him. Absolutely. So, with respect to the logistics of that project, as of right now, we do know that Millville has scheduled a vote to authorize the funding at their November 4th special town meeting, and then they're going to have a special town ballot election for a debt exclusion on November 6th. Given that we reached out to MSBA, and MSBA has afforded us an extension on time to notify them that the financials have been authorized, and they've given us till November 22nd to respond to them. The high school fire system is coming along. I wanted to point out there is a temporary system that is in place that is connected to the fire department so that if sensors go off, the fire department is notified. I spoke with the chief directly, and he has assured me that what we have in place currently is better than what has been at the high school for years. That being said, if you walk into the high school, you may notice the nice bright orange sensors along all of the ceilings. The second floor is 100% wired for the system. They're working still on the first floor and the gymnasium auditorium areas, which we're going to take a little bit longer. But the hope is that the entire system will go live on November 12th. So
It's going to be a busy day.
it's going to be a busy day. Update on the phone systems. They've all been installed. They're up and running. We've identified all of the emergency and fax lines that we are confident in. We won't know 100% until we shut the rest of the lines, but we've identified them and are very confident, probably 98% confident that we've got everything. There are some intricacies, like they're called banana lines that just go directly to the police department, like for an emergency buzzer, but we have identified them. So we are going to be turning the rest of the lines off probably by the end of next week.
Will a message be sent out to parents for that, I foresee the one line that's not connected will be the most popular that day.
Oh,
And so,
oh, no,
is there
the-
like
it's-
an
it's not-
alternate line that, you know, if you can't reach your party, call this number
Oh,
or
I
something?
apologize. So all of the lines that were able to be dialed into the schools, those were all transferred over to the new system. They've been set, they've been functioning. None of the old phones have been ringing. So, with the exception of mine, people still, they haven't been shut off, but you can just unplug them and people still keep calling mine.
It's really me calling them.
Yeah.
It's just to bother them.
Just to bother.
But the back phone to the police station is working.
It is working. I wanted to, where did I go? So district security system, as we just mentioned, the high school has been completed. The middle school, I believe they completed yesterday or today, and they're moving on to the other schools. They have had a great deal of success, and working with our IT team. I don't believe the middle school is up yet, but the high school, you can view remotely online and through your telephone. It's pretty, it's pretty, everyone, no. Specified administrators would be given access to the plan, but more importantly, the purpose of the remote access is for the police, so that they can view the cameras in the event of an emergency.
And do the clerk secretaries, is that, do
Yep,
they have
can-
access to that
yep,
during
they
the
can
day?
view- Yep, they can view multiple screens, multiple cameras on their screen, and they've been shown how to change some of the positions and switch. And we can certainly provide more training for them if it's needed. The hot water heaters that required replacement, based on our inspection from our insurance company, the middle school hot water heater was replaced, so that's all been done and it's up and running. The JFK hot water heater has been ordered, and I've been given an update that it will be installed by the end of next week. I was at the building looking at the boiler construction and talking to the workers, and they said that we'll have that hot water heater installed by the end of this week. The complex, we are still trying to get some more information on what our next steps are with respect to the roof. I've reached out to MSBA. I heard back from them today asking whether or not we've been in touch with the manufacturer of the roof to try to have them engaged in dealing with the warranty. So there'll be some next steps that we follow up on in the upcoming days, and I'll have more information soon.
So the conversation has shifted from the town back to MSBA? I missed
so
that step.
It's
So
kind of
there-
a, I'm sorry.
No, please, go ahead.
It's, right now, it's a bit of a joint endeavor. The town is still looking into what their options are, but concurrently, we decided that since it was an MSBA project and these, people want to stay in good graces with the MSBA, so they get more of these projects, we reached out to them to try to see how they could get involved or what repercussions, might come from
So
it.
the town is still looking in on their end?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what's on this list, but I also had, did I miss something?
No.
Oh, sorry. I had another piece of update information that I wanted to share. In particularly, I wanted to send a tremendous shout out and thank you to Kim Whiteley and BPO. Apparently, there was some work done in the cafeteria at the complex where the lights that are basically, looks like candle lighting, were replaced with brand-new LED bulbs, and it has really brightened the place up, and it makes a tremendous difference. So
Great.
we certainly want to be responsible for taking care of our own buildings, and that was going to be on our list, but in the interim, we may eventually change the ballasts and the lights in there, but for the time being, it's greatly appreciated. Thank you, and the kids can see.
That's great. Good news. They gotta see those bubbles come up in the roof of your flute. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Aaronworth. School committee forum, anyone have anything they would like to share? Or things they would like to see on a future agenda? Okay.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
first go-round of STAR data, when will we get that? When is that scheduled? It might already be scheduled, and
Yeah,
I
so
apologize, but.
No, that's okay. So it's underway, and for grades 2 through 9 for ELA and both math, and we are implementing this year the early literacy for grades K and 1, where the actual text is read to the student, and the student it's actually an interactive kind of platform, and the student is going back and forth with the text through the actual system while the text is being read to the child. So that actual window, we are, I believe, opening the first week of November, so that teachers, we have more time to study the platform and look at the plan we're going to need to implement that and how best to do that. But right now, grades 2 through 9 are testing already.
Okay. And when do you
Look at the data.
have it in your
Yeah.
mind to share with us?
So last year, we did, if I remember correctly, I think we did just at the mid-year point, we did the beginning and middle. So we looked at all the beginning year data, and then we looked at the mid-year data. It was during my mid-cycle review for my evaluation, we had that. But quite frankly, I'm happy to share it sooner than that when we
I think now, because we have last year's beginning of the year, middle, I think,
Sure.
Once you
Look
have
to
the
see.
base data, it's valuable to
Yeah.
see that as you go data.
In the next few weeks, though, we're going to be focusing on presenting the MCAS data and setting the goals and sharing out the school improvement plan. So for the next month, I think we're going to be
Yeah, we'll be busy.
Data out.
Data-driven.
in the schools. So I think after that round of data, then we'll have a second round of data, and that'll be the STARS data, and then we're going to wrap around again. So I think we're setting the stage in the next few weeks for sharing out all that MCAS stuff.
Yes, and I hope did everybody get the headlines and highlights I sent?
Okay, anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, our next meeting is scheduled for October 10th. At this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn to go immediately into executive session for the purpose of MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A. And we will adjourn from the executive session, not to return to the open meeting. And we'll still moved by Tammy, seconded by Wendy.
Yes.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Well, meeting moved to executive.